So hello and welcome to SFU and the Faculty of Environment. I see some familiar names in the group, which is great. Welcome back. And to those of you that are here for the first time, thanks for joining. We have a new slate of speakers this week, so fresh content, even if you have joined us before. And I think that you are really going to enjoy our guests this evening. So just to introduce myself, I'm Donna Dove, and I work in the Dean's Office for the Faculty of Environment. My co-host this evening is Marina Miller. Give a little wave, Marina. Marina is a student from our Global Environmental Systems program, and we're both really excited to have you here this evening and have an opportunity to share a bit about who we are as a faculty and hopefully make you feel welcomed and part of our community. I'd first like to recognize and acknowledge the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, Katzie, Quaquitlam, Kikite, Kwantlen, Semiahmoo, and Tsawwassen peoples on whose traditional territories our three campuses reside. We are privileged to live, learn, and gather on this land. If you have any questions over the course of the session, please feel free to either raise your hand using the feature that you'll find in the reactions in the bottom toolbar, or simply type your question into the chat if you prefer. Please don't be shy. This session is for you. And likely if you have a question, there are 3 other students out there who have the same question. So here's our agenda for this evening, just a quick run through. We have lots to share with you. For the new guests, we're going to go over just some quick, brief highlights of SFU so you get to know a little bit about the larger SFU community. And then one of our first-year professors, Andrew Perkins, is going to drop in and share a bit about his first-year course and some research. Actually, he's here. You can give a wave there, Andrew. You'll hear from our co-op coordinator, Paul Degrace, also here. Give a wave there, Paul. Thank you. And hear about the value of co-op. You'll meet some current students who either currently are out on a work term or have already completed their work terms. And then we'll make sure we have plenty of time at the end to make sure that we answer all of your questions. So first of all, I want to say congratulations to all of you high school students for being admitted to SFU. I know the pandemic has not made it easy for completing your high school, so I hope that you're all really proud of your accomplishment. SFU was named #1 comprehensive university this year. And in fact, we've held that honor for 12 out of the past 13 years. And you may wonder, what the heck does comprehensive university even mean? It includes all Canadian universities that have a significant amount of research activity on their campuses and a wide range of programs at both the undergraduate and graduate levels, including professional degrees. But we're classified different from those universities that have medical schools because we don't. SFU is ranked as one of the top 35 universities in the world for innovation and entrepreneurial spirit. And did you know that there are approximately 25,000 universities in the world? So again, I hope that you're proud of your accomplishment. You've been admitted to SFU, and this is now your university. So I'm now going to turn it over to Marina to give us a little more information from the student perspective.
Awesome, thanks. So hi again, I'm Marina. I'm about to complete a Bachelor of Environment in Global Environmental Systems, and it's been an amazing 5 years here. I've done various volunteering and co-op jobs throughout my degree, and right now I'm actually doing one more co-op with the Faculty of Environment where I get to talk to students like you. And now I'm going to go over a few more features of student life. So while students have been home during the pandemic, SFU Burnaby has gone under a lot of renovations. And one of the biggest things is the new Student Union building, which I've gotten to see get built from the ground up. And I'm really glad that future students are going to get to take advantage of this. It's going to be completely devoted to students with lounges, study areas, meeting rooms, and rec facilities. There'll be a napping room, a gaming lounge, space for clubs, a performance stage, music rooms, and even a community kitchen. So pretty much everything a student would want to use during the day. And next, we've also got 2 brand new residence buildings to accommodate our growing community. They're single occupancy rooms, which is really nice for privacy, but there's a lot of social space for students as well, like study rooms and wellness spaces. So now I will hand it back to Donna.
Thanks, Marina. So next on our agenda, I'd like to introduce you to one of our first year professors, Andrew Perkins. Andrew is from our geography department and will be teaching Geography 111 Earth Systems this fall. And even if you're not a geography major, this course is still one of your required courses, except if you're an archaeology student, where it could be one of your electives. Andrew's research focuses on paleoglacial landscapes and hydrology in South Central BC. Over to you, Andrew. I'm going to stop my share here. There we go.
Hey, thanks, Donna. So yeah, I teach the introductory geography course in physical geography. And I also teach a number of other courses sort of up through the system. I teach 300 level courses in natural hazards. And today I just spent about 4 hours outside teaching the field school. And I also teach a glacial geomorphology course at the 400 level. So if you're into physical geography, you'll be seeing me a lot over the next few years. And if not, then you'll see me in Geography 111 perhaps. And I just want to welcome you here, first of all, and say it's great to initially make contact with you guys, and I welcome you into the course. The course is really about making connections between systems. So we look at the atmosphere, the hydrosphere, the geosphere, or the lithosphere, and the biosphere. And a big theme in the course is linking how these systems work and connect with human activity, how we benefit from those systems, how we impact those systems, and getting a sense of how we're affected by those systems overall. So it's really about trying to bring the dynamics of all those systems together and see how they're linked together. One of the areas that we look at is the lithosphere, thinking about things like earthquakes and landslides, and looking at how those physical processes shape the world that we live in. And I wanted just to take a moment to tell you a quick story about my earthquake experience. Has anybody here, maybe you could just raise your hand or give a thumbs up or thumbs down if you've ever experienced an earthquake before. Has anyone here actually lived through earthquake? Yeah, oh, okay, quite a few of you, wow. Yeah, so my earthquake story happens about, 20 years ago now in 2001. Which, you know, when I first started teaching, many of the students actually experienced this earthquake as well. But for many of you, well, for some of you, you may not have even been born yet at that point. For most of you, you probably were, but you probably don't remember. 2001, there was a 6.8 earthquake in the Pacific Northwest here called the Nisqually Quake. I was in high school at the time, actually in physics class, and it was violent enough that, you know, my teacher recognized what it was, and he said, you know, get underneath your desks. So we all huddled underneath of our desks, and I was sitting across from my friend Stan at the time, and he looked at me in the eyes, and he said, Andrew, I may be the last person you ever see, which, you know, as a high school senior, that's not really the thing you want to experience in your physics class. But nevertheless, it was a pretty minor earthquake in terms of damage, but that's my earthquake story. What we know about the Pacific Northwest, of course, is that we can experience much, much greater earthquakes than that. And one of the things I like to do in my classes is look at examples and demonstrations of how things are affected by these physical processes like earthquakes. So one of the demos that I do, I actually have it set up right behind me, and Donna, please forgive me. This is, you know, just a chance to get out and explore a little bit more. So what you see behind me, these are actually kids' toys, and what they're supposed to represent are 3 different heights of buildings. So you guys know that during an earthquake, if you're in a skyscraper, that's one area that can shake quite a bit because of the way earthquake waves shake those structures. But one of the really cool things about earthquake waves is that the amount of shaking experience that in any given structure is related to its height and the frequency of the earthquake you're experiencing. So if your building happens to match the shaking frequency of a specific earthquake, the shaking you'll feel is a lot more than somebody else in a different sized building. So you can see I've got 3 different sized buildings set up here. I've got sort of a medium sized building on the one side here. I've got a short building in the middle, and then I've got a really tall building on the other side. And what I'm going to do is shake these 3 buildings at different speeds, and I want you to see how they respond to those different frequencies, okay? So here we go. I'm going to start with a really low frequency shaking. So this is my low frequency shaking, back and forth. You should see that tall building really moving around. So that's a big low frequency earthquake. Now, if I go really high frequency and lots of shaking, you can see which one shakes the most is actually the small building. And then if you go in the middle, now that middle building is really going back and forth, and the 2 others are barely moving at all. So it's all related to the size of the earthquake wave. And if you just happen to be in that building that's the same height as a multiplier of that seismic wave, you're going to feel that earthquake a lot more. So these are the types of things we talk about in Geography 111, thinking not just about the physical processes, but how we are impacted by them as humans, and the stories behind them that people who experience those events have. So that's all I got. But if you have questions about the course or anything else in geography, I'd love to hear them.
All right, thanks, Andrew. That's really interesting. It does make me think about where I live for sure. I'm going to open it up to our audience for questions. And again, feel free to type your questions for Andrew into the chat while students are thinking. I know it takes you a little bit of time to think about what you might want to ask and type it in there. So I'll just mention this as you're thinking about it. One of the reasons we're bringing our first year professors to the Zoom sessions is students are often really nervous and intimidated by their professors. And so we really wanted to, for you to meet them and get to know a bit about the person behind the professor. As you can see, Andrew really isn't all that scary. So we hope that you'll make the most of this time, ask your questions. Andrew, can you think of one piece of advice you would give to students?
Yeah, good question. And just to comment on that a little bit further, my 3 kids were like hovering around just outside the screen here as I was doing all of that. So yes, very approachable. And I guess my one piece of advice is ask questions. Ask lots of questions in first year. The more comfortable you get asking questions, the better off you'll be down the road. And what I would say is, it's my job to answer those questions, as many of them as you have. That's part of the job that I have. And one of the things I love about my job is connecting with students on those questions. So yeah, if I have one piece of advice, it'd definitely be ask as many questions as you can.
Excellent. And we have one in the chat here. Does physical geography include climate change topics?
Yes, the answer is absolutely yes. So that's one of the major topics we cover. There's a whole lab centered around climate change. I take about 1.5 lectures to talk about that. And of course, it integrates with a lot of other topics we have. So, much of the first part of the course is built on understanding our relationship to the sun and weather and climate, and all of that builds together. So by the time we talk about climate change, really your foundation for that is all of the weather and climate and understanding our relationship to the sun that we've built throughout the course. So it's really sort of a scaffolding process as we move through.
Excellent. Thanks for that question, Hannah. Anyone else have a question you want to ask of Andrew? And you have office hours. Typically, are those once a week for students, Andrew?
Yeah. Yeah. So during face-to-face opportunities, I'm on campus quite a bit. And so really, whenever my door is open, I encourage students just to drop by and come in and chat. But I do have scheduled office hours every week where it's just time for you to drop in and ask questions about the course or geography in general, sort of your approach and where you're going. And during the online sessions that we're offering now in online virtual classes, I've got Zoom session office hours. So those are still going on. And I connect with lots of students sort of out of those normal times as well. So I'm really open to connecting with you guys when it works for you.
Excellent.
So question there about class sizes. Good question. So my classes, get smaller as you go up. So the first year class is usually anywhere from 200 to 250 students in there, which is big, but it's manageable. There are smaller groups that you meet in on a regular basis. So there's lab sessions that you meet in on a regular, almost weekly basis, where you're in a group of about 20 students or so. So in those sessions, it's much smaller. You have the opportunity to ask questions there. You have an individual teaching assistant who's also assigned to your group who you can get to know and ask questions of as well. So it is a larger class, there's no doubt about it, but there's opportunities to connect sort of one-on-one a lot. So good question.
Excellent. Good. Any other questions from the audience? All right. Oh, yeah. How often are physical geography lessons outside, or is there any field work outside? Good question, Lauren.
Yeah, that's a good question. And at the end, my answer is as often as possible, but that's not always the case. In the physical geography introductory course, 111 or 111, I do try and when we're meeting face-to-face, have students go outside to collect data usually. So, there'll be 3 or 4 labs when you go outside for about 15 minutes to 30 minutes at the beginning of the lab session, go out and collect actual data outside and then come back in and work on that and process it. In the online version, there's opportunities to do that sort of on your own as well, and tried to build that in because, really, in my opinion, geography is all about experiencing your world, and it's hard to do that inside all the time. So yeah, there are opportunities to do field work even in that introductory class.
Excellent. Cole asked, I'm going to be in the archaeology program. How would I take geography as an elective? I'm still a bit confused about how electives work. So within your degree typically is made up of 120 credit hours. Typically one course is 3 to 4 credit hours. And within that 120, you have certain major requirements, and then you have certain breadth requirements that you need to do. And those breadth requirements are electives. And typically you can choose from any other faculties or other programs within your same faculty. And you guys will be getting access to, it's called University Prep. It's an online course, and it'll really talk about how your degree is structured, what faculty means versus your bachelor's degree, and how all of those little confusing, I know it is confusing, pieces kind of fit together. So I hope that helps a bit. Hannah asked, this is a bit off topic, but coming from high school, I'm a bit confused. I know some professors might prefer being called by their first names and some don't. What do you prefer? Nice question, Hannah.
Yeah, that's a good question. For me, I honestly don't mind what you call me, as long as it's done in a respectful way. I go by Andrew all the time, and that's the way I sign my emails. I don't stand on any other pretense there, but that it's safe to say that there are other profs who do want themselves to be called Dr. So-and-so, and that's okay for them too. So the best thing to do, and maybe other students can comment on this as well in their experience, but I find the best thing to do is just listen to what they say at the beginning. How they sign their emails is a good way to get a sense of that. And, you know, in my first class, I usually just tell people, you know, you can call me Andrew, you can call me whatever you want. So if your ears are open, then you'll usually find that information out. And if all else fails, just ask. And usually people will be pretty honest with you.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, we're going to keep moving along. So thank you so much, Andrew, for joining us and sharing all of that great information, and have a great evening.
Yeah, thank you. And good to meet you all.
Excellent. So next up, over to you, Marina.
Awesome. Yeah, that was great to hear from Andrew. I'll mention I had him in my first term of SFU, and his class is great, that 111, and Natural Hazards is a great class as well. Okay. So next, we're going to get to hear from the Environment Cooperative Education Coordinator, Paul Degrace. He'll give you a quick rundown of what the program is and why it's a great option during university. So I'll hand it over to Paul. I think he has some slides.
Thanks, Marina. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. I was going to ask Andrew a really tough question, but I figured I wouldn't put him on the place. I was going to ask him, how big is the next earthquake going to be, and when is it going to hit? I know as a geography prof, they love that question. Anyway, so I'm here to talk about co-op. I've shared my screen. I have a little bit of a PowerPoint, but if you could just kind of raise your hand digitally, or use the reaction, or put your hand up physically. How many of you know what co-op is? So Teresa does. One person. Okay, so we're starting from Lauren. A couple of you do. So we're fortunate too that we have three. Marina, Nell, and Julia are all co-op students. So you can ask during my presentation. You feel free to ask any questions that you like of me, and I can answer those. And then you can also ask any questions of the three co-op students as they speak, and they can give you their perspective. So that enough being said, and I'll just leave it up to you guys to keep an eye on the chat, and then you can ask me any questions. I don't mind being interrupted when I'm speaking. So in a nutshell, co-op it basically integrates related work experience with your academic studies. The idea is that you go out and you work for a full semester or two with a company in your related discipline. You work full-time for them, you get paid to do it, and then you come back to school for a semester or two, and then you go back out again. So the idea is that between the time you join co-op and the time you graduate, we want you to do a minimum of 3 co-op work terms. They're all paid work terms as well, and they're full-time. So this process, in addition to getting you real-world experience before you graduate, it also facilitates a process of self-learning. If and when you do complete the 3 work terms, you get a specialized degree. So when you graduate, your degree will say cooperative education right on. But more importantly, your resume, as the 3 students here can attest, will be quite impressive and will have a lot of work experience. There are some requirements to join. You need a GPA of 2.75 or above, and you cannot have completed more than 80 credit hours. Now, the 80 credit hour limit is probably for anybody who's starting just out of high school. That might seem like a long way off, but if anybody's transferring from college or transferring from another institution, you just have to be aware that we want you to join co-op earlier in your academic career as opposed to later. And by joining earlier, that just gives you a lot more flexibility in terms of when you can do the work terms and when you can sort of schedule them around the courses that you need to take. So there's lots of benefits to co-op. Obviously, the first one is that you get gain access to a variety of paid quality jobs, and we go out and find the positions. In co-op, we don't rely on you to find the positions, although you can do some job searching on your own and bring positions forth to us account as co-op, but the majority of positions, the vast majority, we find them and then you apply to them. And most of our co-op jobs actually are restricted to co-op students. So even if a non-co-op student saw the job, the employers would not allow them to apply because they want that seal of approval that comes with the co-op from the university. We post jobs all over British Columbia, all over other provinces in Canada and the United States, and in some cases, at least in the environment section, in some cases around the world. I don't have as many positions globally as, say, engineering or business, faculty of business does, but I do place a lot of students everywhere in BC. I've had students work in the Arctic. I've had students work in the prairie provinces in Ontario and even on the East Coast and the Maritime provinces. So it's an awesome opportunity if you want to go and live and work in another part of Canada, meet new people and experience what that's like. So there's that opportunity, and it's all facilitated by us. And as I kind of mentioned about your resume, through these experiences, you develop excellent resumes and you gain interview experience, and you just get very comfortable in sort of marketing yourself, participating in interviews, and how to apply for jobs, which becomes very valuable once you graduate. Other benefits, and this is a huge one, and Marina, I know, raves about this one all the time, is building a network of contacts. So every employer that you work for becomes a future employer, and those people that your supervisors and managers become excellent references for you when you start applying for other jobs. You can obtain professional letters of reference from these people if you plan on going into graduate school or into professional programs afterwards. The positions are paid, so they can assist with financing your education. You obviously, our students do really well and develop better communication and marketing skills. And they also gain a really good understanding of their coursework. So if you go out and work in a position, as either Nell or Julia will tell you, the work that they're doing now, when they come back and apply that work to their coursework and take classes related to that, they tend to do really well as a result. And I tell my co-op students this all the time, that I hear from the faculty in the university and the departments, they know who the co-op students are. They don't have to self-identify. They just know who they are based on their level of maturity and experience and understanding of the subject matter. You also can gain exposure to new technologies if you're going and working in the lab or doing research. So that's something that you might get in addition to what to add to your education. And for international students, I don't know if any of you are international visa students, you are able to work in Canada full-time any semester throughout the year if you're on an approved co-op work term. So that can be a huge benefit to students who have limited otherwise if you're a visa student. So huge benefit. I have just some sample employers here. Now, this is certainly not comprehensive of all the positions that I have students working in, but I just wanted to give it a rough estimate. Most of the ones that I selected here happen to be in British Columbia because that's where the majority of our students work. But just want to give you an idea that, you know, these are fairly significant corporations, companies, and government agencies. That's federal, municipal, and provincial. So a lot of the local cities and municipalities hire our students. I have students right now working for the RCMP doing GIS and computer mapping, Vancouver Police Department, TransLink in urban planning, Ministries of Environment, Environment and Climate Change Canada, consulting agencies in archaeology as well. That's in doing curatorial work, working in museums, or even working in the field. We have several students doing that every year. And at SFU as well, a lot of academic researchers and faculty hire our co-op students to work for them in their lab and assist them with their research. Vancouver Airport Authority, who'd ever want to work at an airport? That's a really fun place to work. That's where Marina did a couple of work terms. And Parks Canada and BC Wildlife Federation, just to name a few. So, I mean, obviously our list is way more comprehensive than that, but just want to give you an idea. And in a nutshell, that was co-op. So you do need to apply and join co-op. Ideally, if it's your first semester at SFU, I'd probably wait until after your first semester because we do need a GPA, but I definitely wouldn't mind talking to you, or you can get in contact with me. We have a major information session in the third week of every semester that you'll get invited to, and I encourage you to attend that as well. So I know that was pretty quick, but maybe I wanted to leave lots of time if you had any questions for me about co-op. So I'll
Thanks, Paul. Yeah.
I'll actually stop my share so we can just
Sure.
Yeah, there we go.
All right, there's a question here.
Mhm.
For a part of my environmental technology diploma, I completed an 8-month co-op with the Ministry of Forestry, and I was planning on doing a co-op again for my bachelor's. How do you find the balance of school and work? Oh, to the students. I'm sort of confused whether this is a
I think
question
that's more of a
about.
question for a student. So why don't I
Oh,
put
okay.
that to, can I just throw that back to Nell or Julia?
Yeah, sure. If any of you want to jump in and answer this. Yeah, how do you
I
find
could
the
answer
balance of
that,
school and
but
work?
I
Yeah.
would prefer, it'd probably be better if the students answered that. So Nell, why don't you take a shot and then Julia can contradict everything you say.
The co-op it's like a full-time kind of job, at least in my experience. So you don't actually have to go to school while you're working.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about doing homework while you're working like a 9 to 5 or whatever your hours are. Yeah, it's just a term and then you go back to school. So, or longer if you choose to extend your co-op. So it's pretty manageable, I'd say.
Julia?
Yeah, same. You're just not able to take courses. I think it's not allowed.
We allow students to take a course if they wanted to, an evening or distance ed or something. Yeah, but generally
although
want the
Not as
focus to be
common.
on their work.
Yeah, I don't think I would recommend anyone to take another course because it's a full-time job.
Yeah. So Teresa, does that answer your question? So when you are in a co-op work term, you're working full-time, you're generally not taking any courses. So you're putting all of your energy into that. Is that kind of answering your question? We'll leave Teresa to come up with that. I hope that answered the question correctly. I mean, it can be a little bit of extra work when you're applying to co-op and going through the interview phase because you're doing that when you're actively enrolled in courses. That can be a little bit of extra work, but certainly not a huge burden. You just have to juggle your schedules. I was more concerned about going from work full-time and then back to school. Oh,
Oh,
okay.
I see. Yeah, that's a good point. It is sort of jarring sometimes. Like from my experience, I worked for 8 months a couple years ago, and I found myself missing school. So I was almost ready to go back to school and then ready to go to work again. So I don't know. To me, it felt, yeah, it was weird going back sometimes because you haven't been in class for a long time, but you also kind of miss both sides at the same time. And I'll mention that we will hear a little bit from some students. So if you have questions for students, we can all answer those. But are there any final questions for Paul specifically about the program itself? Here's a good one. Can you apply to co-op more than once if you don't get accepted the first time?
Yeah, I mean, generally, if you meet the requirements, if you have a GPA above 2.75 and you're under 80 credit hours, and you have a willingness to be an active participant in the program, and I see you as a responsible, mature person that would do well with our employers, then we don't generally turn people down if you meet the requirements. But if for some reason your GPA wasn't high enough, and you needed an extra semester to get it up again, then yes, you could reapply. And if you met those requirements, then you would be accepted. So yeah, there's no problem there. Yeah,
Great.
as long as you don't
And
go over the 80 credit hour limit, that's all.
awesome. And there's another question. Does working at co-op require any prior experience?
I'm going to throw that back to the students if you don't mind. So Julia, let's start with you. Did you catch that one?
Yeah. Yes, it does. So because you're doing a competitive selective process, you're doing an interview process, so you are competing against other students, not only from SFU but from other universities. So yes, I don't know how much each job requires, but obviously
I think it depends. There are some jobs that are well suited for first year, second year students that pay less, obviously, but that's how you get your foot in the door. So some of them require experience. Some of them are okay with just, if you've done some volunteering in high school. That's how I got my first co-op. So
yeah, it depends on the position. I mean, obviously, the more senior positions are going to require previous experience. But as Marina said, there are entry-level positions, and we have students. Most of our students have either some retail or service industry or some volunteer experience, and there is opportunities for you. But it's very much a ladder and the stepping stone you're going up. So you're starting at the bottom and you're working your way up. And the more senior positions are more challenging, more advanced, and I think what Nell and Julie are in right now, and even Marina would be considered more senior. But there's opportunities for students with very little previous experience, but any experience, particularly even volunteer experience, if it's related, is a good thing to have because it gives you a little bit of one-up, little option. Are students able to choose what company and job to do? Yes, you self-declare which positions you want to apply to. So you have access to our entire database and you get to look through it. And the nice thing about SFU is you get to see all the jobs from every major and every faculty in the university. You're welcome and encouraged to apply to any positions. Not all universities offer that. A lot of universities restrict you by only seeing and applying to the positions in your faculty, which I find very limiting. But SFU is unique that when you go into that job posting board on a daily basis, you can see between 300 and 500 jobs on any given day. And it can be a little bit overwhelming sometimes, and you can apply to them. And we encourage you to try new things and make sure that, the part of co-op is exploring what you want to do for a career. And I'd rather you go out and try it for 4 or 8 months and see if you like it or not. And if not, then you can try something different the next term. But the idea is to find that out before you graduate. That's the whole idea. Are co-op jobs opportunities outside of Canada harder to get into? Not necessarily. I just don't go out of my way to try and find co-op jobs outside of Canada because truth be told, I have a hard enough time filling the number of jobs I have in Canada. So when I have, companies posting in northern BC and on the island and in Ontario, and I'm getting very few applications, I'm not going to spend a lot of my time going to look for a job in Malaysia, an environment that'd be really cool if I can't fill a job that's in Kelowna. So they're not necessarily harder to get into. I just try and fill the jobs in Canada. Is co-op, how is it graded? Co-op is not graded. You do register in a course and you do pay tuition for that course when you're enrolled in it, and it's pass-fail. But you do maintain your full-time student status while you're on a co-op. So even if you're off working in Lethbridge or Calgary or Edmonton for a work term, you're still considered a full-time student of the university while you're working there, and you have the full weight of the university behind you if there's any issues or problems. Okay. So I think I'm taking up enough time. I think I'll probably leave it at that. And then please ask the other students, you can ask them more questions about their personal experience. So.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, so just in the sake of time, we're gonna get a better idea of what it's like to actually be in the co-op program and hear from a couple students from the environment program. And then we can have more time for questions at the end as well. So I will call on you in order, and then you can speak for a couple minutes and we can answer some questions in between if there are any. So first I'll hand it to Nell, who is a co-op.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you, Paul.
Take care.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
So I'll hand it to Nell first, a co-op student in the REM program, and you can chat about your co-op experience a bit.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Nell. I'm in my 4th year in REM, so Resource and Environmental Management. And I'm on my 3rd co-op term now, and I've just been extended to my 4th. So lots of co-op for me, which is great. And my first term, I was assisting a fish biologist with fisheries consulting, stream assessment, and writing reports. So I was doing a lot of different things. I was doing data collection from online databases. I was condensing that information and making field maps using GIS programs like ArcMap. I was doing field work as well. So I was out in the bush and I was measuring streams, like checking water quality, monitoring for fish. And so that was my first term. And then for my second 2 terms, I've been working for SFU actually under the Ancillary Services Department. And I'm running the Fair Trade Ambassador program. So I'm the coordinator and it has been really crazy. I'm leading a lot of outreach activities. I'm recruiting students and training them in fair trade and just like creating this program in general. So I've been doing lots of presentations and meeting a lot of great contacts and designing this program. And it's been a really good experience. I would say that my takeaways kind of from both of them are very different because they're very different jobs. Like my first one was I'm out in the field, I'm doing science kind of work, like not seeing anyone, just, you know, working with like tools and measuring qualities and stuff like that. And I found it was really good because I realized I didn't actually want to do this kind of work where I was outside all the time, and it's very lonely work, and it's kind of boring for me personally. I found I didn't want to sit in front of a computer and like put in data all day long. I wanted to be talking to people and seeing what they think about things. So I found this position with SFU Ancillary Services, and like my whole job is talking to people, and I realized I really like that. And it's given me a lot of really helpful experience, like program coordination, like how do you train a volunteer, let alone a student volunteer that is like, you know, has other things on their mind. So it's been really helpful in terms of managing people. And also I've learned a lot about fair trade and this kind of international organization, how they do things in other countries. And yeah, I don't know, I've learned a lot and it's been really, really valuable for me. So I would say that I would definitely recommend co-op to students. My experience has been good. Of course, not all jobs are as exciting as mine were. I think sometimes jobs are like you're sitting in an office and you're just like helping with administrative kind of stuff. So when you are looking for jobs, like you have the option to apply for whatever you want. So I would say find the jobs that look exciting to you and really like go for those, because otherwise you might just be stuck somewhere doing something you're not super interested in. So really find something that is meaningful to you and kind of apply for that. And see where it takes you, because you might find you don't even like it, which is great, because this is what co-op is for, is figuring out what you really want and what you really don't want from a job.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with that last point. You know, it's just as valuable to find what you don't like as things you do like. So yeah, that sounds like a great experience you've had. 2 different experiences, but 2 great experiences. Are there any initial questions for Nell specifically? Or yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or put it in the chat. And if not, we will hear from our next student and then you can ask questions then too. All right. Okay, so why don't we hand it off to Julia?
Hi, everyone. My name is Julia. Sorry, I wasn't able to change it in the Zoom setting. So I'm in my last 2 semesters, and my major is environmental science. My minor is REM, Resource and Environmental Management. I've done 2 co-ops, but 3 terms of co-op. So I did 2 terms with 1, and then I'm currently on a co-op. Right now, I'm working for Environment and Climate Change Canada in their Carbon Markets Bureau. And previously, I worked for CERNAC, which is another federal department. CERNAC stands for Crown, Indigenous Relations and Northern Affairs Canada. The tasks that I did for both of these roles kind of overlap. So I did a lot of policy interpretation and policy analysis. I also made summaries of various documents or policies or small research tasks that I've done, and then presented those to my team. I'm also tasked with keeping up to date with relevant policies in different jurisdictions, whether it be Canada or internationally. I also do some admin work, which includes communication with stakeholders. I've also drafted briefing notes, and I've created stakeholder engagement materials. And I've really, really enjoyed all of these experiences, especially the one that I'm doing right now. And mostly because I learned a lot and I developed skills that I wouldn't otherwise have, or maybe it would be more difficult. And I didn't develop those skills in school, so that's a big bonus. And as Paul said, co-op kind of functions as a bridge from classwork to, I wouldn't say the real world, but the working world. So every time you go on a co-op, you kind of cross this bridge, and then you're doing stuff over here and you're learning, and then you come back. And the things that are talked about in class make a lot more sense. And you get, at least in my experience, a much greater depth of understanding of what the prof is talking about. You get a different perspective and understanding of the complexities of the issues. And another big bonus is that now I'm graduating with super excellent contacts and not exactly job offers, but both of my supervisors want to keep in touch with me, so that's great. Yeah, so yes, I would recommend the program. And I would say that if you as new students are concerned about doing a 4-year degree, I know this is a common idea of a 4-year undergrad. I'm in my 6th year of school and I only know a handful of people that have graduated within 4 years. So I would strongly advise against foregoing opportunities that would be really helpful to you and be very fulfilling and interesting. Don't forego those things just because you want to graduate within 4 years, because honestly, nobody cares about that. People care about your experience and your knowledge.
Awesome, thank you. That's a really great piece of advice. And that question comes up almost every time these sort of sessions happen. You know, oh, how much longer will it make your degree? Generally a year, but you know, if you take 4 or 5 classes, sometimes people still may graduate in 4 or 4.5 years. I know people who have done both, but I'm in my 5th year, going on almost into 6th, and I have 3 whole employers under my belt, and I don't know how many other people could say that if they didn't take co-op. So yeah, thank you both of you for sharing those experiences. And I'll read out someone's question asking about the length of terms. So they asked, you know, are the 2 term lengths 4 or 8 months? It can vary from 4 months, like you could do just a 1 term, you could do an 8 month, some people do a year, and some people even do like a year and 4 months or something. So sometimes you'll go into an 8-month position and the employer will say, we really want to keep you on for a year, and you can say yes or no, or, you know, sometimes I'll ask you right off the bat. I've had employers ask me, do you want to stay longer? But my plan was to keep going back to school. So I just said, no, I'm going to do 8 months and then leave. So that's okay too. You know, it's sort of a cycle and they get new students each time. And I think doing an 8-month balanced with a 4-month is really great. Like I did a 4-month and 8-month, and now I'm doing another 8-month with all terms of school in between. So you really customize your degree in a sense with the types of jobs you're applying for. Yeah. So I know that's a lot of information. Are there any questions about any of the things we've talked about on co-op? All right, well, yeah, feel free to ask. Donna, should I? Oh yeah.
Even if you have non-co-op questions, like if
Yes.
anything you've started to think about from listening to Andrew or Paul or anything totally unrelated, please, this is now your time to ask any of us your questions. So don't be shy, as I said earlier.
Yeah, like if you're
Another, oh yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Either any of us have done, like ask what it's like if you're interested in doing it in the future, because the odds are it'll be offered again. So keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm. There's a question here. How did you decide on your minors and concentration? So I think one of you had a REM minor. Maybe you could speak on that.
I have a minor. Well, it's a long and boring story, or it's interesting for me, but it's probably boring for you guys. I started with environmental science major because I was concerned about climate change and about other things. And then I realized that science is not what I really want to be in. And I decided that policy and sociology and psychology and these economics, this kind of stuff was more interesting to me. So, but by that time I was too far into my science degree to really switch to REM, resource and environmental management. So I just made it my minor, but now I have way more REM courses than I actually have science courses.
Yeah, and I have a certificate in geography because I'm a geography student. I took a certificate in GIS, which is computer mapping and database management. So I just found myself enjoying the courses as I was going through my degree, and I did a co-op with GIS. And I thought, I'm just going to go and get this certification for my degree, even if I don't decide to do this work, which I probably won't, which is something I've learned through doing all that work. But I have that certificate under my belt, and it's a skill that I probably don't give myself enough credit for. Like, I do know a lot of these things, and it's pretty cool to have a specialization, even if you don't necessarily use it, but it can be good for your resume as well.
And we often hear from students, wondering, or they're unsure of whether they're in the right program or not, or the right major, or maybe they ask, like, how hard is it to change majors? And can you guys comment on that?
I never changed my major, but I've changed universities a lot. And so my major has changed in that way. But I think if you're in your first 2 years, and you decide to change your major, it's not the biggest deal. Like, a lot of the classes, I don't know, like, you can get your electives filled up that way. So I would say don't fill up your electives right away, like really save those till your last few years, because then if you do want to change majors, or you realize you're tired of school and you want to take fun classes, then you can do that. But I would say keep your electives later, and changing majors is not too much of a big deal.
I have the opposite advice, and I would say take your electives now. Because for me, like, it's important to kind of explore and take a bunch of everything and see, okay, do I like psychology or do I like whatever? And I did change majors, but I changed them super drastically. I went from nursing to environmental science, so most of my courses did not transfer, but that's okay.
Yeah, it's a small part of your whole life. Yeah.
And I think even though you both have different experiences or different feedback, it just shows how everybody's journey is different. And some people, I think both options, saving some electives to the end is great, but also that exploration early on in your time, and really helping you to define which path you want to go, both have equal but different value.
All right. So yeah, if there's no other questions, you're welcome to drop any more if you have them. But if not, I think Donna has some closing notes for everyone, and I'm going to be providing some resources in the chat, so keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, and if you think of any more questions as we're going through these final comments, please feel free to keep typing them in. So we just wanted to mention that these Zoom socials are hosted every 2 weeks, and we have different guest speakers coming every 2 weeks. The next one is April 21st. We will have an archaeology professor speaking, and some of our peer mentors coming to speak at that one. And Marina is going to stick in the chat the link for the registration. And as always, you'll get that link and an invitation in your email. Do make sure that you are continuing to check your email regularly, because that is our main way of communicating with you. We also have started what's called the Green Collar podcast, where we are interviewing some of our alumni about their career paths and kind of how they got to their eventual careers. So we do encourage you to look those up. They're on all your podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, and Marina has again put our Anchor link in there. So do check those out. Marina is actually the interviewer on those podcasts, so friendly voice. Also, both of our emails are in the chat. Again, feel free, if you think of questions at any time over the coming months, just keep our email addresses handy. we're more than happy to answer any of your questions. We are here to help support you in this journey. There's a residence link in there. If you are coming from afar, you do need to apply for residence separate from your regular application for admission. So if you haven't yet done that, please get on that. They're starting to roll those offers for residence out. And I think she's also put a timeline link in there as well. So again, any more final questions you can think of for us? We hope you found this information valuable. And again, we do hope to see you again in a couple weeks, get to know your Faculty of Environment community, and meet more of our current students. So thank you all so much for joining us, and hope to see you in a couple weeks. Have a good evening. Bye.
Thank you.